So welcome, and I'm glad to see so many of you came out tonight. So it's a little bit of a drown night out there. It's still wet and humid. So first of all, just to say, if anybody hasn't been here before, the back are back here in the back. So anytime. Also, we request that no one do any audio or video recording without permission. And see if there's anything else I need to remember. So the event tonight, we're going to have a speaker with us. I'll be introducing in a minute, and we also have a couple of our candidates. Democratic candidates in the state, and we are hosting them, but we are not backing any one particular person, but we'll be introducing them after Mr. Nolan's talk. So tonight we're going to be talking about Ukraine and what's going on there at the moment. We're lucky enough to have Brian Nolan with us here. And Brian has been involved with Ukraine right from the start of the war. He was very involved with humanitarian work in Ukraine. And do you still live in Kharkiv? Or yeah, so he's here visiting, but he is a resident of Kharkiv, which is great because he gets firsthand view of what's going on in Ukraine. And he'll be speaking to us about his experiences working in the hardest hit areas of the country and the risks that the people there face. I'm sure many of you watch the news, and even though I think Ukraine has fallen out of the news a bit as of late, it does look like it's coming back, and this will give us a chance to catch up where things are at, and if there's anything we can do to be helpful. So, and he also, the good thing is that Brian can provide us with fact-based assessment of what the U.S. government has and has not done recently to assist Ukraine, and what we can do to encourage our representatives in the Senate and Congress to encourage more support for Ukraine. Then after Brian is finished, we will be introducing a couple of candidates who will talk with us a little bit afterwards. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Okay, Brian, take it away.
All right, thank you, Ingrid. Welcome, everyone. Believe it or not, the war in Ukraine is still going on. People actually ask me periodically, Ukraine, is that the war still happening? Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, it's been drowned out first by Gaza, events there, horrific events there, and now there's the Iran escapades. I got to remember I'm at a Dems meeting. This is great, so I can slam Trump all I want. I do a lot of Rotary clubs, and I have to walk that fine line, but oh man, yeah, it's so liberating. I'm a member of the Bedford Democrats, long-time activist with them. So there's a lot to cover tonight. I'm gonna try not to get into the weeds too much, but there are a lot of facts that I want to clarify for people that are really critical to know if you care about Ukraine. There's a huge amount of misinformation being peddled by the right about Ukraine, and I just want to stick to the facts. And facts are facts, whether you like them or not. So we're going to cover a lot of different aspects of the war tonight and what it's like to live in Ukraine and the work we do there. So I want to start out with just a brief introduction about Ukraine itself. A lot of people don't really know much about the country. It's the largest country in Europe. It is the breadbasket of Europe, Northern Africa, parts of the Middle East. Incredibly fertile soil there. They have what's called black earth, and it's got a lot of organic matter in it, and it's incredibly productive. So Ukraine exports a lot of different agricultural products to Europe and a lot of the rest of the world. But it has the misfortune of being bordered by Russia to the east, Belarus to the north. Belarus is just almost like a puppet state of Russia. Lukashenko's a corrupt dictator who has stolen a couple of elections over there and basically does Putin's bidding. The good thing is the people in Belarus do not want to get involved in this war, although he did allow Russia to invade from Belarus right in this area to make a play for Kyiv. But so far, so good. He's kept his nose out of the White House. Just to give you an idea of how large Ukraine is, a lot of people don't appreciate the size of it. I live nowadays up around this area in Kharkiv, and to get across the country, it's about a 22-hour train ride to get out of the country. When I come home, it's quite a long venture, 22 hours on the train, then another 3-hour train ride in Poland, and then fly home. So it's hard to go anywhere living in that area because you can't go to the north or east, and if you go down south, that's where a lot of the fighting is going on. Just a couple of quick shots of the countryside. It's beautiful countryside for the most part, highly agricultural. The yellow blossoms here from grapeseed, the source of canola oil. They produce a lot of canola oil there. And this is a soybean field, a lot of soybean, a lot of wheat fields. It's quite beautiful in the countryside. The second you get outside the city, this is a lot of what you see. This is in western Ukraine. It tends to be a little hillier there. It's flatter in the east where I live. But just endless crop fields, and that fertile soil is incredibly productive. Some of the big cities you'll hear about in the news, just to get you oriented with where things are, going west to east. Lviv is near the Polish border. It's only about an hour ride inside Ukraine and feels quite removed from the fighting. They do get hit there occasionally, but Lviv is very European. It used to be part of Poland a couple hundred years ago. So it feels a little bit more like you're in Europe when you're in Lviv. And as you go further east, it becomes deep, you'd say deeper Ukrainian, I suppose. A couple other cities I want to point out. Kyiv here, the capital, it's right on the Dnipro River, which bisects Ukraine. So you can see where Belarus is up here. This is where Russia invaded at the beginning of the war to make a play for Kyiv. So it's not that far to go to reach the capital. Odessa, their main port, where they export a lot of their grains from. Kherson. Mykolaiv is another port right over here. Dnipro, one of the larger cities, and this is my home away from home, Kharkiv, up in the northeast corner. We're about 20 miles from the Russian border. Here's Kharkiv. You can see it's about 18 miles to the Russian forces. They occupy a small amount of Ukrainian territory here. So we're only about 18 miles from the fighting in Kharkiv. A couple shots of Kharkiv, where I live. It's a huge city. It's about 1.5 million pre-war. There's, I think, 1.4 million there. A lot of people have fled and been replaced by IDPs, internally displaced people, i.e. refugees. You don't really lack for anything in Kharkiv. It's more or less fully functional. I'll get into that a little bit later, what it's like to actually live there as an American. Another couple shots of Kharkiv. So some facts about Ukraine. This is where we get into the weeds a little bit. I'm just going to skim over it, but a lot of these are not generally understood by the general public. I think it's important to get this information out. We've heard our dear orange leader refer to Zelensky as a dictator and other people like Tucker Carlson. That is 100% false. The Ukrainian constitution specifically prohibits a presidential election when martial law is declared. And naturally, martial law has been declared since the first day of the war. So they cannot, by law, hold a presidential election now. And when this whole kerfuffle happened at the White House, that you probably all saw, where Zelensky and Vance kind of ganged up on Zelensky. The Ukrainians were so outraged, and parliamentarians were so outraged in Ukraine that they took a vote to affirm this, and it was a unanimous vote in their parliament, and even the opposition parties voted to affirm that they cannot hold a presidential election. They have political parties there like we have here. So even the opposition said, no, we do not want to have a presidential election now. I think Trump said Zelensky has a 4% approval rating. Not that the Donald has ever exaggerated anything, but at that time, I think he had a 66% approval rating, not 4%. I don't know where he pulls this stuff out of, but it's not a good place. There's still a free press in Ukraine with some reasonable restrictions. There's a lot of investigative journalism that goes on there still. And the Ukrainian government has not shut down churches en masse in Ukraine. They've shut down a couple of Russian Orthodox churches. The Russian Orthodox Church is controlled by the Kremlin. The patriarch of the church is a buddy of Putin. Yeah, I think he was every single. Do you remember Happy Days where Fonzie used to go to the jukebox and give a little tap? So yeah, the Russian Orthodox Church is just an arm of the Kremlin. The patriarch was affiliated with the KGB before he became the patriarch. So they do Putin's bidding. They sanction the war. They sanction the killing of Ukrainian civilians. So if a Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine spouted Russian propaganda, the Russian or the Ukrainian government might tell them to knock it off. If they don't, they might shut the church down. But relatively few churches have been shut down. This is a big one, and I fault the Biden administration for not telegraphing this better. They were terrible at communications regarding Ukraine. The United States has spent a total of about $180 billion helping Ukraine, not the $350 that Trump keeps throwing about. We are currently spending nothing to help Ukraine. Trump has not spent a nickel, and there's even $400 million sitting there waiting to be spent that was appropriated by Congress. That headset has not spent yet. He's been taking a lot of heat lately to at least spend that money and do something with it. But they've resisted. But there have been some hopeful signs in the last week that Trump might be coming around, and it would be the first time it looked like he was starting to go on the right side of history and then fall back to supporting Putin again. There's no evidence that any of the weapons have been diverted to Iran, like Tucker Carlson and other people say. And these are the two major ones, which I really wish the Biden administration had been shouting from the mountaintops to let people know about. The majority of the weaponry, which is the majority of the expenditures we've helped Ukraine with, is older, outdated systems. We basically cleaned out the closet and gave Ukraine our older munitions that were due to expire, the older versions of our Abrams tanks, our howitzers, everything. But you have to put a price tag on that to replace those. That's where you get the 180 billion from, the majority of it anyway. And 70 to 80% of that money was spent here in the United States. We weren't shipping pallets of $100 bills over to Ukraine like we did in Iraq. That's what people think. And I really wish more people were aware of this because they might be a little more amenable to us helping Ukraine. We gave them older munitions, and you have at that point, when they're about to expire, you have a choice. You could pay Raytheon and some of these other companies to demolish this stuff, which is very expensive, or you can let them be used for constructive purpose in Ukraine, or destructive purpose, however you want to phrase it, but help the good guys with it and save the cost of demolition, and which is what we did. And you have to replace those. So that's where a lot of that 180 billion came from. And again, 78% was spent here, high-paying jobs at Raytheon and companies like that. The U.S. military got upgraded versions of a lot of these weapons and newer artillery shells and so forth. Here's a great example to show people. This is a pile of artillery casings. These are the metal tubes and artillery shells are shipped to Ukraine with. These are all from the U.S. This was at a artillery outpost that we visited near the front. We picked up a couple for souvenirs. They're just trashed at this point. They're empty cylinders. And check out the date when that was made, 1973. And I had one that was made in 1971. Those shells were over 50 years old when we gave them to Ukraine. And they have an expiration date, which was coming up. So I really wish more people knew about that. We didn't give them all that much newer munitions. There is a long history of Russian oppression in Ukraine. This didn't start in 2014 or 2022. I really didn't know that much about Ukrainian history when I got involved. When I first saw it, it just sickened me when the fighting broke out in February 2022. It just looked like such a David versus Goliath battle, and I don't really take well to bullying and bullies. So that kind of prompted me to get involved. The more involved I got, the more research I did into the history. Russia has been trying to exterminate Ukrainian culture and the Ukrainian language, Ukrainian literature, everything associated with it for well over 100 years. This is not a new phenomenon. So this is why Ukrainians are one reason why they're so stubbornly resisting Russian aggression. If you're not familiar with it, you might want to read up on the Holodomor. I had never heard of it before I got involved in Ukraine. That is basically Ukraine's version of the Holocaust. Stalin starved millions of Ukrainians to death over a period of a couple of years. They were resisting, Soviet dominance, and basically, if you didn't play along with the Soviet regime, they would seize your grain. So they just seized 95% of the grain from Ukraine, and an estimated 3 to 5 million Ukrainians starved to death, despite living in the breadbasket of Europe and Africa, in this land of plenty. There's photos on Wikipedia of people lying in the street dead from starvation. So between 3 and 5 million people died, and this is not the only incidence of this. So Russia has been trying to exterminate Ukrainian culture for over 100 years now. And Russia repeatedly violates peace agreements it signs. A piece of paper signed with Russia is not worth anything more than a piece of paper unless it's backed up with security guarantees. This is why you hear the phrase security guarantees. If Ukraine is going to agree to a ceasefire with Russia or a peace agreement, it has to be backed up with firm commitments from the US and Europe. Without that, it's useless. Russia will just take a year or two to regroup and they'll attack again. Russia does not play by the typical rules of war. They repeatedly bomb hospitals, schools. I think they've bombed about 1,500 schools in Ukraine so far. They use cluster munitions against civilian targets. And to me, one of the most heinous things they do is the double tap strike. That is when they'll hit a building, a civilian building in a city with a missile. They'll wait about half an hour for first responders to arrive. Then they hit it again to kill the firemen and the paramedics that arrive to get people out of the rubble. We just had a terrible incident in Kharkiv where I lived. It was after I had left to come back to the States a couple of weeks ago. It was about a week and a half ago. 4 first responders were killed in a double tap strike. They declared a national day of mourning across Ukraine for that. So this is the type of thing that Russia does routinely to Ukraine. There's no loan. They know. This is what they did the day after they had a temporary ceasefire for the May 9th holiday in Russia. Trump leaned on Zelensky to participate in a 2 or 3 day ceasefire so Putin could have his little military parade. Ukraine agreed, and the day after, this is what they did to a building in Kyiv, I believe it was about a 9-story building they took down. So what's it like to live in Ukraine? Well, I live in a high-rise apartment building like this. This is not the development, but it's very similar. It's a 17-story building. I live on the 6th floor. The cost of living there is very, very inexpensive, fortunately, for an American. I have a very modern 1-bedroom apartment, nice appliances, the whole 9 yards, and I pay $240 a month for rent. Oh. Yeah, and it gets even better from here. Because of the exchange rate, we have a strong dollar and there's a weak Ukrainian currency because of the war. My internet in my apartment, I have gig speed internet. They have really up-to-date technology over there. Gig speed internet is $7 a month. And my cell phone, I just re-upped for a year with Vodafone. Unlimited everything. They have LTE and 5G like we do. It's $68 a year for your cell phone. So everything is priced according to the per capita income in Ukraine. It's not a wealthy country. They cannot charge the prices that we charge here. The per capita income is like $6,000 a year in Ukraine. So there's no way they can charge people $70, $80 a month for a cell phone. So for an American, it's advantageous cost-wise to live there. So I lease my house out in Bedford and live there full time. As far as the risk level, people wonder what it's like hearing explosions and that type of thing. I guess I got acclimated to it very gradually because as the war went on, I worked my way west to east across Ukraine. And at first, yeah, rattles you like the first time you hear an air raid siren go off. These are all new experiences from American, obviously. But nowadays, especially in Kharkiv, the air raid alerts go off all the time because we're close to the border. And basically, every time a jet takes off from Belgrade Air Base in Russia, which is not all that far away, they have to trip the alarm because they don't know where that plane is going to. It's going to launch a missile, a glide bomb or something. So the vast majority of air alarms that could come on are false alerts. And people just go about their business. Nobody really changes their behavior when an air alert comes on. Because frankly, if you went to a shelter every time that happened, you'd never get anything done. You'd spend the whole day and night down there sometimes. The only thing that people have to do is kids in school have to go to the air raid shelter, but they're building a lot of underground schools in Kharkiv now. That's been the latest trend. So I really feel sorry for the kids over there because if you think about it, they went right from COVID isolation to isolation because of the war. So if you were a 40-year-old kid in 2020 when COVID hit, then 6 years later, you may have never set foot in a classroom with your classmates. So they're trying to change that and build a lot of these underground schools. It's very sad that they have to do that, but that's the way Russia behaves over there. I'm trying to think of what else I could share with you about living there. Your risk level depends mainly on where you go in Ukraine. If you're out in a random village in the middle of Ukraine, western Ukraine, is very, very, very low risk. Even in Kharkiv, it's such a big city that I don't feel in danger there. It's a little disturbing when you hear, especially ballistic missiles when they hit. That's a really big explosion. But the Shahed drones, and I'll touch on in a minute, it's just kind of routine nowadays. You hear it, and it's such a big city. When I first moved in there, I went up to the 17th floor, and I was lucky enough to get out on the roof. They were doing work on the roof. And they don't have much reliability laws in Ukraine. So the guy said, yeah, I can walk out on the roof, no guardrails, 17 stories up. And I got an overhead view of the city, bird's eye view. And I realized what an immense city that is geographically. So to me, it all boils down to odds and probabilities. If they hit the city with 4 or 5 Shaheeds in a night, the odds of you being directly impacted are really, really, really low. To the point where it's not worth going to shelter or anything. So yeah, I guess you get used to it. Some people do, some people don't. I just look at everything on a probability basis wherever we go. When we go down near the front, that changes a lot though. The current state of the war, this is a battle map. It's called Deep State Map Live on the internet. This is a very common map people refer to. This is basically the zero line right here. The red areas are occupied by Russia now. The rest of Ukraine is occupied by Ukraine. The green areas were liberated by Ukraine early in the war. So you can see how close the Russians got to Kyiv. They got right to the outskirts of Kyiv before they were pushed back. And the first time I went to Kharkiv up here was right when this counteroffensive started in September 2022. It was a very exciting time to be there because Ukraine was steamrolling over the Russians. And then winter set in and the lines froze, and then the Russians built a lot of fortifications. So the front lines haven't changed dramatically in quite a while. Russia keeps throwing heat waves at the Ukrainians, and with the drone technology now, Ukraine is just slaughtering the Russians. The Russian losses have been enormous in this war. This is as of June 12th. Russia has lost almost 1.4 million soldiers in this war. That's killed or severely wounded. And they're now not able, for the first time, they're not able to recruit replacements for that. They're losing about 30,000 soldiers a month, and they're not able to recruit that many anymore. So there's rumors that Putin's going to have a forced conscription in the fall, which is very, very unpopular, because people are starting to get the word on what's going on here. They can only pull the wool over people's eyes for so long. The Kremlin has shut down a lot of the press in Russia, WhatsApp, Telegram, YouTube, but people have VPNs to get by the censorship. And the word's getting out in Russia that you go to the front line, you're dead. The average Russian go to the front line lasts for 12 days. That is dead. That's it. So it's a death sentence. The reason why some people do it is they pay big bonuses. They'll pay 20,000, in some instances 30,000 for you to sign up. That's a lot of money for some guy living in Eastern Russia with no running water in his house. And so some people look at it like a life insurance policy. The guy. Problem is, Russia doesn't pay many of these policies. They will list the guy as missing in action, so they have to pay the death benefit. So, yeah, they've lost over 12,000 tanks. I think they've lost about half of the tanks. Ukraine has really kicked it into gear recently with attacks on Russia. I don't know if you guys heard about the attacks on St. Petersburg and Moscow lately. It's an exciting time if you're a fan of Ukraine. They have humiliated Putin recently. He had his little Davos knockoff, it was imitation Davos economic summit in St. Petersburg. And at the beginning of that, Ukraine hit this huge oil refinery in St. Petersburg. So there's a classic video, all these dignitaries walking in from all these countries in Africa and all the countries that do business with Russia, filing into the economic summit while there's this enormous black plume of smoke hanging over the city. And they actually had oily rain coming down, coating everything with oil. And then they hit Moscow recently too. They hit a huge oil refinery in Moscow. It's only 7 miles from the Kremlin. So yeah, Putin can hear the explosions going off, no doubt. This is a video of them hitting the oil refinery. So these are the Ukrainian FP1, FP2 drones hitting. Yeah, they have these drones. They look like experimental airplanes. They're just packed with explosives, and they steer them into the oil refineries. They'll hit the storage tanks and kind of the guts of the refinery that are very expensive. You see the lid. Wow. That's a huge oil tank, and that lid, you can imagine how many tons it weighs. That was thrown a couple hundred feet into the air. So this has become the subject. Some great. That's one of the better ones. There's one of like a classic Greek discus thrower holding that thing, getting ready to throw it. And there's like 100 memes online. The Ukrainians are having a lot of fun with that. But it's so symbolic of what's going on there. Russia is losing the war. It's a war of attrition. Russia is losing. And this is another oil refinery in Tuapse. Ukraine is basically doing this every night. They're taking out another oil refinery. You don't hear about it in the news. It's a real shame. Like once in a while, it will trickle down. And, the saying goes, Russia is a gas station with nukes, and they depend on oil revenue to fund their war, fund their government operations. And even though the price of oil went up because of the Iran issue, Ukraine has hampered their exports, their oil storage, and it's a snowball effect where if you take out the storage in the refinery, they can't take in the oil from the oil fields. If they have to shut the pumps down, I got a lesson in geoengineering over there from somebody. If you shut down the pumps in the oil fields, it can take 6 months to a year to get those going again, and you never get full productivity out of those again. So they are doing an amazing job. They know exactly what they're doing, hitting them really hard. So this war is all about drones nowadays. It is amazing, as happens in a lot of wars. Like World War II, we went from biplanes to jet engines. There was virtually no drone presence at the beginning of the war. We used to be able to go a mile or two from the Russian forces. We could hear small arms fire. The only risk then generally was artillery. Back then, 85% of the injuries were from artillery. Nowadays, 90% of the injuries on the battlefield are from drones. It's actually rare for doctors to see bullet wounds anymore. The vast majority of wounds are from drones. And there's a whole catalog of different types of drones. This is the most common type you might hear about, FPV drones. It's basically almost like a consumer grade drone with a rocket propelled grenade munition. And this is a Russian drone, the drone that gave us a crash on the battlefield. Got a camera on the front, battery on top, munition below, and it will steer this right into a soldier, tank, whatever. Ukraine is on par to, let's see, on track to manufacture 7 million of these drones this year. 7 million of these things. And there are just so many kinds of drones. So this is a drone that we drove under. They got hung up on some drone netting. I'll show you in a minute. This is how they protect the roads down near the front against FPV drone attacks. These are the Iranian Shahed drones, now manufactured by Russia. They're Goran drones, geranium in Russian. So when you hear on the news, they might say Ukraine was hit by 700, 900 Russian drones last night. We're not talking about the small drones. These are the ones they're talking about, the Shaheds. They have about, I think it's about 200, 250 pound warhead in the front. And you can see the size of them compared to a soldier there. They're big, they're relatively slow. They just have a little two-cylinder engine on them. But just to give you an idea of the size of them, this is one of the vertical stabilizers on the back of the drone that anti-drone drone defense unit gave us. So this is from a Shahed drone that they shot down. So they're quite large. We hear them a lot in Kharkiv. You can just hear, it sounds like a little lawnmower up in the sky. And then you could hear a little bit of death dive and hit a building. But unfortunately, Ukraine shoots down about 90% of those with the drone interceptors. They launch them off pickup trucks like that or off Iraq. And this is a video I'll show you. So you'll see a Shahed drone come down right here. There had already been 2 strikes. This is out my apartment window in Kharkiv. So you can hear the drone. There it is. And that one hit a kindergarten in Kharkiv. Fortunately, no kids were injured. They were downstairs in the bomb shelter. So we see this somewhat routinely in Kharkiv. And this is a drone strike in Kyiv. So this is what Russia does day in, day out to civilian targets in Ukraine. We see it all the time, hear about it all the time. This is a children's center. We get involved in a lot of kids programs in Kharkiv. We don't run the activities, but we fund them. We buy toys and all kinds of things for the celebrations they put on for displaced kids. This was in the Kharkiv Children's Hub. Beautiful place, center for kids. They had pool table, foosball, trampoline there, and they would throw these parties for kids. This was a back-to-school celebration. This was probably 3 years ago, I think, 2.5 years ago. So about 3 months after this happened, Russia hit her with a Shahed in the middle of the night. This is what they did to it. Unfortunately, it was all glass on both sides, and it just blew out all of them. Yeah, so you can see what they did to it. So unfortunately, they went to smaller space. It was just perfect for kids, but this is what Russia does every day in Ukraine. Ground drones, another big innovation by Ukraine. They actually mount a 50 caliber machine gun on these drones, and it's pretty funny. They've had instances lately where Russian units have surrendered to drones. Ukraine doesn't even have to go out there. They will wheel this thing in, open up with 50 caliber. Those rounds are about this big. It's a big round. It's terrifying, really loud, really destructive. And there's this loudspeaker on the drone and a camera, and they'll tell them, if you want to live, surrender, follow the drone back to the Ukrainian position. So it's great. There's videos out there online of 4, 5, 6 Russians following a drone back to the Ukrainian position. And the lower right here is an evacuation drone. It's not safe to take an ambulance or vehicle out to the zero line anymore because of drones. So Ukraine will send these out. It looks like a coffin, but it's actually a reinforced shell. And they'll put the wounded guy in there and take him back to a safer place to be evacuated. At least it gives them a shot at evacuating the guy, because otherwise there's no way they can get the guys out of there wounded. And last thing is naval drones. Ukraine has sunk, I don't know how many Russian warships in the Black Sea, including their flagship, the Moskva, back in 2022. These are the most popular ones, the Sea Babies and the Maguras here. They're autonomous. They have a Starlink on the top of them, use them for guidance. And the Ukrainians will control them for the last section and just steer it into a ship. And the Russians are more or less defenseless to stop these things. So Ukraine's been absolutely brilliant with the technology without losing any lives doing this type of stuff. So a little bit about us. We started right after the war. My first trip over there was about 2 or 3 weeks after the war started. And again, we got gradually more and more immersed in it. Originally, it was a 2-week trip, and then turned into a 3.5-week trip. And then I'm on mission 9 now. I'm heading over for another year. This will be a total of 5 years after this. It's not part of my 5-year plan, but it is now. So my bucket list is on hold for now, but I'm happy to keep doing it. We've got a really good operation going. We've got a warehouse in Kharkiv. We've got full pallets of aid that we buy everything at wholesale prices, but we do depend on donations. We run off donations. 100% of our personal expenses are paid by us. No donor funds go into transportation over there, staying there, anything. So we have very low overhead as a result of that. We don't pay for office space or anything. I have a van over there that I bought with my own funds. So really, probably 99% of the donation money goes directly into buying bulk aid. And we source everything locally. We buy full pallets of everything. And because of the cheap prices for food, especially, we can buy a lot for $1 over there. It's really not worth shipping anything over from here anymore because of the cost of shipping. And we personally deliver everything we buy down near the front. We do a lot of updates on Facebook, less on Instagram, more on Facebook. So we try to update people every time we do a delivery or an activity, or just let people know what's going on in Ukraine these days. So there's a, I don't know if you guys have seen a sign up sheet about the newsletter here, where you can sign up on the website. There's a little pop up. There's annoying things that pop up when you log into the website or check it out. We do a monthly newsletter. We don't spam people, so less it's just an update on our activities over there, and I try to include an update on what's going on in Ukraine. I've also got some business cards on the table if you want to grab one of those. Quick shot of our website. Take a look at it. There's a lot of information. We have photos from all our trips and just general articles about what's going on in Ukraine. Some resources for watching other YouTube updates. This is a shot of our van with the VW transporter. We brought to about 2.5 years ago. We moved there full time. So here's Kharkiv up here. This is primarily the area where we delivered to. This is the Donbass area. It's a series of cities which are the Donbass fortress. This is the part of Ukraine that Putin really wants. It's the hottest part of the war right now. Russia is pouring a ton of resources and manpower to take that area back. So I'll show you a little example of the type of work we do. This is the village of Cedarov. So this is from probably 2 years ago when we used to do deliveries there. So a buddy of mine from Alabama came over for a couple months to work with me. And the woman in the yellow t-shirt, Olga, she coordinated the drop. It's mainly elderly people living in the villages now. So we would do a delivery there once a month or so, help people out there. And about a month ago, I got this video from her. Her father took this video in the village. That is a crater from a Russian glide bomb that hit. It does enormous damage. They're anywhere from about 1,000 pounds to 5,000 pounds. So now basically every house in the village is demolished. This is what Russia does. If they can't conquer it easily, they destroy it. They've done it to countless cities in the occupied areas. You know, Florence, Bakhmut, so many cities where Russia does every day. So the bulk of our donations are spent buying basic humanitarian items, food and hygiene. We give people usually about 3 kilos of buckwheat, which if you've never tried it, I highly recommend it. I've never had it until I went to Ukraine. It's absolutely delicious. You do a lot with it, and it's extremely nutritious. So we give a lot of buckwheat, some barley or some other grain, salt, sugar, tea bags, washing powder, all the basic staples that they need to get by for maybe a month or so. And help along. The photo on the right is from a drop we did about a month and a half ago. That's the biggest drop we ever did. It was 240 bags we did in one day. That was in the city of Sloviansk, and the people we gave the bags to were from the villages in the outlying areas that had been destroyed that we used to visit. So we handed out those bags to them. This is our van loaded up for a pretty typical delivery. We also bring adult diapers and feminine products with us. A lot of elderly people who need the help in the villages. And again, here's the areas we visit right around here. Here's the Sloviansk Kramatorsk area. This is the hottest spot of the war right down here. It's about a 2-hour ride. And we drive under a lot of drone netting I mentioned before. This is now covering about half of that 2-hour ride. We drive under this stuff. There's got to be, I don't know how many miles, 40, 50 miles of this drone netting over the roads. So it stops the FPV drones from getting you, hopefully. There are occasional openings where you have to turn off the road so they can get in there, but it does a lot to help. And we drive by a lot of these fortifications. This is why Russia wants Ukraine to hand over the Donetsk basin area, the Donbass area. Ukraine has been building fortifications here for years, and Russia figures they're going to lose like 150 200,000 guys if they want to take this area. And Trump has been telling Zelensky, just hand over this area, and Russia will agree to peace. And all they'll do is sign a piece of paper and then attack him in a year or two. So Ukraine, they'd be foolish to hand over. They're not going to hand over this area. It's been built up for years. We see lines like this everywhere as fortifications. So you can see the anti-tank ditches, barbed wire, concertina wire. These are dragon's teeth. They're like concrete pyramids strung together with cable. So the only way you can penetrate this is to use that road. And Ukraine has that zeroed in 6 ways to Sunday with drones and artillery. So there's no way in hell Russia's going to penetrate that line. You need to get engineering equipment up there to remove all those obstacles. When they get within 5 miles of there, they're demolished by Ukrainian drones. There's eyes up in the sky everywhere you go there. So, Ukraine will not be handing over that area to Russia anytime soon. This is a woman I work with, Chell. She has her own organization there. She's from England. A wonderful soul. She does a lot to help people over there. Just a couple shots of the drops we do. So one additional thing we do for our drops is I work with a military chaplain in Sloviansk, great guy, very good friend of mine. I've worked with him for over 2 years now. He works with the military and civilians down there, so he'll set up the deliveries for us, and we get the lay of the land from all the military units, how hot the area is with drones and so forth. So this is a great deal we get from a bakery down there. We send Alexander, my buddy, $100. He gets 350 loaves of bread baked for $100. Really, really cheap. He puts all the bread in his vehicle, and we bring the bags and everything else, and we will caravan out together to a village or to a drop site, and the people will walk up, get 2 or 3 loaves of bread, then go to our van and get the aid. This is a village, and I forget where this is, it was occupied by Russia. And I think the village store, there's only one store there, was destroyed by the Russians. So there's this vehicle on the right, our van on the left. That's a pretty typical delivery we do. And this is my favorite babushka, Ludmila. 88 years old, still lives alone by herself, self-sufficient, has a garden out back. Most of the people in the villages, they have a big garden, so they can things, they have a lot of vegetables they can store. My favorite babushka. She looks forward to seeing us, her face lights up, she gets in line home, and we give her a big hug, and we'll give her a ride home typically, because those bags are pretty heavy. Yeah, wonderful. I mean, this is the type of stuff that just makes it all worthwhile, interacting with people like this. She's such a sweetheart. There's the victims, there are some victims of this brutality, and we just gotta do everything we can do to help them. A couple other things, we'll be wrapping it up in just a minute here. We also make food deliveries in bulk to some of the food pantries in Kharkiv. The woman on the right, Natalia, she cooks up about 150 to 200 meals a day for displaced people living in the area. And a lot of these people, it's a very hot meal they'll get. And it's a place to gather and have a communal feel for the meals. Wonderful, wonderful woman. So we'll make deliveries to her. We do some evacuations occasionally of people and pets. This is my girl Lana. That was the day we brought her back to Kharkiv. The soldiers picked her up on the front line, and she's now the official mascot at a humanitarian hub in Kharkiv. She has a really good life. Lucky dog. We fund kids events. This was an activity put out by an organization over there. We'll buy them the paper, the paints, really inexpensive stuff, but enables them to put on these types of get-togethers for displaced kids. And Christmas time is our favorite time. We get to play Santa. There's my friend Jill next to me there. We got these gift boxes donated by a Danish organization. They give us about 300 boxes. So we put together these events for kids in some of the villages. So how can you help? We are donor funded. If you donate, always welcome donations. Can't do much without them, unfortunately. You can follow our work on Facebook if you're interested, and share what you've learned. If you learned anything new here tonight, if you know anybody interested in Ukraine, share the facts. The facts need to come out about why it's important to defend Ukraine. If Ukraine falls, the Baltic states are next, Poland's after that. Putin's made no bones about it. So the fight for democracy is going on in Ukraine right now, and it is worth our money and effort to make sure Ukraine prevails. So everybody, thank you for coming out tonight, and I appreciate your attention. I know it's been a long presentation, but as you can see, there's a lot to know about the war that doesn't get covered by the media. Unfortunately, it gets drowned out. So I think it's important to keep Ukraine in our thoughts and actions, and do whatever we can do to support them. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. And if anybody has any questions, I'll stick around. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
So we're going to take a couple minutes and have a break if anyone wants to go get some refreshments, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk with some of our candidates. And as Brian said, he'll be available also for questions. And Brian, thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight. We really appreciate your presence and your update on Ukraine. I think, as you said, it's kind of gone out of the news, so it's good to get facts on the ground from someone who's been there. So thank you again. I appreciate it. And if you want any, there's information on all the tables for their website. And I think there's a list going around if you, Judy will pass that around if you want to sign up for emails. So, all right. So we'll take a break. I'm going to call you back in a couple of minutes. There's a bathroom.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was having something.
Oh, no.
It just couldn't get it.
Oh, really? So are you at the forefront of this?
And we're required to use it. I found it many ways to use it. And I'm trying to figuring out how
Very fun.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, all right, it's gonna go. You can walk there from here. It's hard.
actually ranting about it.
An easy bike. Yeah.
I had a plan. I knew.
And I know in the late '70s, they just like.
Well, it's a problem. Just-
Oh, it's about. Was there because there was some sweat. Work. Depends what you do. So that I went to get a home. You want to.
Probably a lot based on an account.
Yeah.
It's no burden of one.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not. Yeah. Blew through a lot of it today. I did get a lunch.
They approved it, they have to approve it or something, or?
I had in this case. Once they.
Like he's promoting something.
We were able to feed them.
Nice.
You know, I will jump into the bottom of the tokens. That was the last while. I ran into today. So I just.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 3 large teams. And it was told 5.
Right.
How are you?
Well, I don't know, to the meeting or anything like that? Not really, just you get rid of it. Okay. We don't waste time doing that, you know what I mean?
But he's over. Showing more reason.
Some people be using it, some people.
Well, it's coming.
We use it most of the
You're right about that. There's no need to fight it, huh?
but it's a skill. I have
Take
how what I can tell you, how I have to find out.
Look, my biggest flaw, personality, that I don't do something shrug things. Really does. I recognize that.
At least I know there is.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's good that some people do it. Yeah, they don't. Yes. I'm just beating my head against the wall. Yeah, it's stupid.
No, it's like.
No, that's good. You're like you're.
Well, this time of year apparently.
Good for you. When did you start? In December, right? Yes.
Tell people.
Right.
I'm thinking like bungee through the windows.
I have to tell you this interesting.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I actually, I think. And, yeah, whenever you're right, it's some days I remember sitting on the couch.
Well.
Yes, that's right. Mama, Elena, what's her name? Elena? Elena, yeah. I'm not sure what the position of the Ukraine, not knowing anything about this, like what, 30 years?
30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember her name now too.
Oh,
She came over and because she couldn't practice medicine, and I remember going to GW bookstore and looking at books for it. I came back to work that day. Foreign physician, because I said, wasting your time, and I. It was difficult, but on the one hand, he was going through separation of force and everything, and it was too much. And I can't recall why she said she would do it. I don't think I got a good answer, but she went back, and so many of her friends were going into computer programs to learn.
Not in the late 90s.
Well, so that's what they were doing. I remember one of our acquaintances did that to school for like a year or something. And she also ultimately did the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I studied.
So
I studied software for 4 years.
right. Is that right? Not easy.
On some of the most complicated things we've ever done in the US. And then I have the opportunity to read. I have to read this is
And all that.
I have to treat like it's
I said,
what I do. My last.
oh, really?
And the new one is
I don't think might as well, but I mean.
much better organized. Some of
All right, let's get back to our seats. I gave you a little more than a few minutes, so let's get back to our seats and we'll get started on the second part.
You're supposed to watch. You're supposed to.
So you did a nice presentation.
It's fine. Yeah, it's up there.
Okay, so the second part of our program is going to be meet the candidates, and we're very fortunate. We have 2 candidates with us tonight. We have Melanie Levesque is going to be up first, and Melanie, many of you know Melanie. We see her frequently in our meetings, and she's a very busy person and very involved with the Democrats. And Melanie was in the past on the executive council. So Melanie, come on up.
Just like this. I hope you don't mind. I like to have the security of a podium in my notes. So thank you so much to the Hollis Dems for having me here today. And I want to thank Brian as well for the work that he has done. This is the second time, actually the third time I've seen him, but the second time it's fun. And I learn more every time I hear from him. Really important work. So for those who don't know me, my name is Melanie Levesque. I live in Brookline. I'm on the Hollis Brookline School Board, Budget Committee. I was on the school board. I served as your representative and your senator. And last year I ran for executive council. And it was a very different run because executive councilors are not legislators. They don't make law. They make decisions on spending money or who gets appointed as a judge or commissioner, or the 10-year plan, what we do and how we fund our roads and bridges. And as Deb Pignatelli always did when we would see her, we work with constituents. When you have a problem, you can go to your rep, you can go to your senator, you can also go to your executive counselor. And what I found out in talking with Karen Leott Hill was that when you call a commissioner and you're an executive counselor, they call you back in like 3 minutes. So I like that response time. I think we should be helpers. So I'm running for executive council because I believe that government should work for the people, not against them. And we've been seeing way too much of that going on these days. You know, I talked to you about a little bit about the role of an executive counselor. I'm running against David Wheeler. Does anybody know David Wheeler? Yeah, we all know David Wheeler. He's been in office for quite a long time. And I know that we can do better. You know, I talked about appointing judges and commissioners. David Wheeler appointed Frank Edelblut as the Commissioner of Education. He had no experience with education, homeschooled his children. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with homeschooling your children, but to be responsible for over 100,000 public school children, you gotta have some experience. That's how I feel. You know, another point regarding education, this is really a big deal. I read recently that David's litmus test for picking a judge would be whether they would overturn the Claremont decision. And the Claremont decision is about adequate funding for our schools. It kind of made me think about what's been happening for all these years where they have been underfunded and why have they been underfunded. And now purposefully, our schools are being underfunded. And we can talk more about that. So another recent happening, a vote that he took, which was very surprising to me, is that there was some federal dollars, $1.5 million to go to help young people with disabilities. It was to help teachers understand how to work with these children. $1.5 million. He did not approve the $1.5 million because the contract had the words DEI in it.
Oh.
Okay? That's a problem. I think we can do better. I know that we can do better. So the Executive Council has been around for a long time. It was founded in 1679 by King Charles. And it's still around today. And it would take a constitutional amendment to change things. So we're going to go with it. There's 5 councilors here, and you need a majority of 3 to make a decision to approve or reject anything that the governor does. And so it's a pretty powerful position. And we need people in that position that are going to be thoughtful, that are going to look at contracts like a business person, not like a buddy, that will respect the fact that people have different lives. We all think differently, but we all belong here. So again, we really need to make a change here. So I'm speeding right through my conversation, but let me tell you about me, as if you don't know, but some of you might not know. So I got my values basically from my mom, who was a single mother, raising 6 kids. I don't know, sometimes I was afraid she was gonna drive us off a cliff because, we were just like 6 brats. But anyway, she really invested in us, music lessons, dance lessons, working on the farm in Merrimack and picking weeds, which was not fun. But I love gardening today. But she's the one who taught me that even as a single mom, you can work and you can volunteer and you can take care of your family. And that's what she did for me. I remember the pancake breakfasts and the spaghetti suppers that we would have at the church and the community that we would have, the great neighborhood that we grew up in. Those are all things that are inside me that I want to continue. So, let's see. Just a few other things about me. My mom died when she was 47 of cancer. And when I was 20, I took my brother and sister, Mark and Cindy. They were 11 and 12, and I raised them. And because we lived in a good neighborhood and we had great schools, we all got a really good education. We had an opportunity, and every child deserves that opportunity. Now, there's a lot more to my story, but I don't want to go on, and you can hear part 2 or 3 at another time. But, it's really important that we have people in office that are going to work for us and that have proven that they can do so. And that I'm a small business owner, so I am responsible, fiscally responsible. I know how to look at contracts. You should have 3 contracts. If it's no bid, there better be a really good reason why. And I believe that improving our roads and bridges is very important to our infrastructure. Another example for David Wheeler is that as a senator, I had passed a bill with folks from Nashua to study the rail train to come from Boston to Manchester. And we actually got that bill passed. This was all federal funding. But when it was 3/4 of the way complete, David Wheeler decided that it was a boondoggle, and he just voted against it. So the rail is dead for now, but hopefully we can bring it back. So just another example of David Wheeler and how it's not working for us. And speaking of not working for us, I want you to remember these numbers, 56 over 60. You may see it around little signs dotting the countryside. Next to the Melanie Levesque voted for an income tax sign, which was really family medical leave. But anyway, so 56 over 60, what that means is that the Republicans for the past 60 years have been running this show for 56 years. They have been in power for 56 years. So who is responsible for this mess? Our property taxes are going up. Our schools are under attack. We're spending a lot of money on vouchers for people who went to private school, had never gone to public school. And, it seems like our government is starving our people and our towns and our schools. And we deserve so much more. So the executive council plays a part in that starving. And that is by hiring a commissioner who has no experience with public education. So we can draw a line from the decisions that David Wheeler made to what's happening here with high property taxes and the degradation of our schools. So I'm really going to be laser focused on holding him accountable. First of all, how many people knew what the executive council does? So we have a lot of people who know, which is good. There's a lot of people who don't know. So we have to explain that role. But we also have to explain how we draw the line from executive council to higher property taxes. We can do that very easily with our representatives, right, Kat? Yeah. So our representatives have been voting for cuts to our revenue for years and years and years. And now it's coming to roost. And that's where the 56 over 60 means a lot. people are gonna start to think about that. So I don't wanna be doom and gloom, because there's a lot of good things that are happening. I think last time I saw some of you, we talked about how the ICE facility was stopped because people were out on the streets. They were writing to our legislators, to our governor, and it stopped. Kelly decided that we didn't need one, apparently. Although it took the firing of a wonderful commissioner in Sarah Stewart. But that's still a win. We have the AI facility in Nottingham that was stopped. We have people on the bridges, right, with signs, the bridge brigade. We have people in Nashua. We have no kings. We are standing up. And that is how we win. So we must continue to stand up. And I, along with several other people running for office like Kat. Hello. She's really awesome. But yeah, we've got a lot of really good people running for office. I want to mention that, one of the reps named is Jerry Roach, and Jerry will be covering Hollis, Brookline, Mason, Greenville. And Jerry was a police officer, and now he is a select board member for Brookline. So he's really a good man. He will stand up for us. He will speak for us, and he will listen to us, which is really important. So lastly, I just want to say that when we talk about the pushback and the accountability, one of the things that we did in our town, and I know you did in your town, was we presented warrant articles. And the warrant articles that we did in Brookline were for gerrymandering, stopping the downshifting of funds, and stopping or controlling the vouchers. And this was an awesome opportunity to tell all of these people in the room, probably, maybe 200 people in the room, what is happening. So I did mine on gerrymandering, and it was really great because I got an opportunity to show how they voted. And part of gerrymandering is that you're not really represented. The party in power does what they choose, and you just have to take it. So when I showed this table of how they voted and showed that when the vouchers came out, there was a bill to not have any limits on it at all. And there were 388 people that wrote in and said, that's what we want. We don't want any limitations on vouchers. There were 3,407 people who said, we want accountability here. We don't want higher, thresholds for vouchers. And how did our reps vote? Well, mine all voted, to raise the cap for vouchers. They're clearly not voting for us. We use CAT as an example in Brookline because CAT is a gold standard for us, and she does not agree with those vouchers. So it was a great opportunity to stand in front of all of these people and say, your reps are not voting for you. They're not listening to you. So I hope next year you'll do more. We'll do it again. We'll have an opportunity to educate, but we can't wait until then. We need to start now. Start talking to people, talking to your neighbors, talking to undeclared people, talking to Republicans who may not be, happy about this, or they may, but it might be good for us to understand what they're feeling and have that conversation. So lastly, I just want to say that I wear this color yellow, actually because people recognize me when I'm outside putting up my signs, and I realized it was a good idea because everybody knows when Melanie's in the room. But also because it kind of reminds me of sunshine. It reminds me of happiness. And I think we need a lot more of that in our lives. We need to be accountable and to hold others accountable, to shine that light on them. And we also need to be that light of hope, which I hope that I can be for you as well. So thank you very much for having me. And who's next?
Thank you, Melanie. That was awesome. And as Melanie said, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And we're going to put our nose to the grindstone and keep going. We have some exciting events coming up in the summer. We have next month, Ben Min is going to be talking to us about the state of education in New Hampshire and some of what Melanie alluded to with funding and freedom accounts and whatnot. And we have a very exciting event in August 15th. Please put it on your calendar. It's called Rock the Boat. We have 3 bands are going to be playing, many of them locals. And we are going to have information and a lot of fun things, food trucks. So please put it on your calendar and come for Rock the Boat. In the meantime, we do have one more candidate with us, Paige Beauchemin. Might I pronounce it right, Paige?
She's great.
Okay. And so Paige is just going to talk just a little bit about what her ideas are and what she thinks.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. And I think I'm just going to stay here if that's okay, so that I can come. That way I can see everybody. So, all right, I've got 15 minutes for what I have to say and questions. So I'm going to go for 5 or 7 minutes. So this will be the fast version, because as Kat and Melanie know, I can talk for a long time. I first wanted to say thank you to Melanie, and just you two have some really good ones here. I hope you know that. We would be very lucky to have Melanie's experience sitting at that table with the governor, and I will be doing everything I can to help her get there. And Kat, seriously, one of the best statements. Like one of my, I don't say that all the time to everybody. No, she's just she's a good one, you know. She works hard. She's nice. Gets stuff done. Okay, so Paige Beauchemin. I am a mom of 3 school-age kids. I am a registered nurse, and I have been a New Hampshire state rep for the last 3 years. I am running for U.S. Congress here in New Hampshire's 2nd district and in the Democratic primary. And I'm doing that because it is time to get money and corruption out of politics and make things work for the working people again. So that's why I'm here. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised all over southern New Hampshire. I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for 16 years, and I've been back here in New Hampshire in Nashua since 2018 with my husband and my 3 kids. I have a very, very low income and traumatic childhood, and I think that taught me a lot of empathy and resourcefulness early on. I also am first-gen college. And so I've always been a leader, but I didn't think that I was qualified or adequate to be involved in politics. So I think that for a long time I did that through my work as an advocate, an activist, and in my career, I had done environmental work. I actually volunteered for AmeriCorps in the North Country when I was 19. So I lived up in Berlin for a year, teaching adolescents stewardship of the environment. But I have been a nurse since 2010. I have focused on women's maternal child health with a crossover or intersectionality, if you know that, of health equity and mental health. I've done inpatient, outpatient, all kinds of different stuff. I have worked in corporations building digital health tech programs, and I've worked in public health giving vaccines and working with undocumented and unhoused folks. So quite a breadth of experience there. As I said, I always wanted to be a leader, but didn't think that I could do that. And in 2023, somebody in my ward resigned, one of the state reps, and in my ward, I am in Nashua, I'm at the Tree Streets. So I've got the lowest income ward in the city, and I have the 2nd highest Spanish-speaking population in the entire state. So you could guess it's a little bit difficult to find people who can run for state rep. And during that summer, when I signed up to run, there were 199 Republicans and 198 Dems. My seat was going to tie the house. Yeah, what could I do, right? I had to say yes. Crystal Lloyd and Laura Tillerson. I said yes. So the big thing though about when I finally got there was that I realized how much of a difference it made that I am a working person. And we've got a lot of amazing state reps, like I said. I mean, I love so many of the folks I work with. One thing though is that I don't feel like my demographic is completely represented. There's not a lot of people with young school age kids at the State House. There's not a lot of people dealing with school loans they've had for 2 decades that they've been paying for and are still about the same, right? I have 3 school age kids. It'll cost me about $3,000 a month if I want to send them to camp. And what are they doing if I don't? Sitting around the house begging me for video games and ice cream. So that's a tough thing. So I became a state rep and I absolutely loved it. This year I actually submitted a bill for 6 months of paid family medical leave, which hasn't been back around since you voted on it. So I hope they don't hear about me if they call that the past. But anyway, when I decided to run, I gave my husband a hug and I said, you know, when this starts, it doesn't end, right? And he gave me a hug. He's like, I know I'm married. But I never intended to run at all this soon. That was not the plan. What happened after the last election, though, was it's a series of things that were really bothering me. The first one was that I've been told to vote for certain people for over a decade. And I did not want to vote for anybody I voted for president over the last decade. And again, we did it and we lost. And my life is worse than it was 10 years ago. And there's a big part of me that wishes that we put our foot down more 10 years ago, so we wouldn't be in this situation right now. I do not feel that our representatives were fighting for us. I did not see the kind of energy and urgency that I needed to be seeing. And the next thing is that in January, as we're watching this, all 4 of our federal delegates are partially responsible for ICE. They all voted for the Laken Riley Act. Goodlander, Pappas, Shaheen, and Hassan all voted for the Laken Riley Act. Now that is the act that explicitly requires detention and took away our due process. To me, that's absolutely unacceptable. That is not within the values of the Democratic Party. And I don't think that those people should go unprimaried. And that is why I am running in this race. The next piece is that all 4 of our federal delegates take lots of Israel-aligned lobby money and refuse to boldly acknowledge or clearly acknowledge the genocide in Gaza. Now, one thing that's becoming very, very clear is more and more people are understanding that politicians who take AIPAC or Israel-aligned money are very likely to be answering to their donors and not to us. It's now becoming a very good indicator of who actually is going to do something for us and who is going to continue to choose to not give us Medicare for all, to not help the planet, to not codify Roe v. Wade. We should have more than what we have right now. We have low wages, costs are out of control, education is out of control. We can't afford anything right now. And these things, they did not have to be that way. They are choices that were made by leaders who are answering to their donors because that is what they're there to do. I am here to offer something different. I am here to give you somebody who you can relate to, someone who represents you, someone with integrity, who has a lot of good ideas, passion, and does not ever stop. I am looking to bring back power, prosperity, and peace to the people. Power means getting money and corruption out of politics, preserving democracy, and voting rights. Prosperity is all the affordability. I'm a Medicare for all single payer candidate. I want full, affordable, stable, safe housing, fully funded education, pre-K through higher education, paid family medical leave, which is my little side project because it's not only economic, it's also my specialty is maternal health, and 80% of people who use that are postpartum women. And it's being more and more associated with health outcomes. So we really do need to keep looking at paid leave. Affordability also includes a livable wage and union and worker rights. Peace is peace abroad, peace at home, and peace of mind. We have to get out of these wars. There's no reason we should be spending billions of dollars to other countries. Well, we don't even have healthcare. Did you guys know Israel has full healthcare? We're sending billions of dollars, and we have 45 to 90,000 Americans a year dying from lack of healthcare. That is a choice. I'm a nurse, I'm a mom. I have been standing up for immigrants for decades. I don't take any dark money. I have been endorsed by Track APAC since January. I'm the only representative that I know of. I believe that I submitted the only bill that has been in New Hampshire legislation calling for peace in Gaza. These are the kinds of things that I do. I know what's important to people because I'm a working person. Not only am I a mom, but I'm a nurse. I work with all kinds of different people. I know how to talk to all kinds of people, and I get along with a lot of people. I fight hard, and I want to take care of people. And I have integrity. And I think that that's a really important piece, is knowing that you can come to me, you can talk to me, and that what I tell you I will do and what I want to fight for is really what I'm going to do and what I'm going to fight for. But more than that, this is about a movement. This really isn't about me. What I'm trying to do is help all of us as working people. And unless you're on like close to the 400 most wealthiest people, even if you're living pretty nice right now, we're still all working people. We have been abandoned by the ultra millionaires and the leaders who continue to be complicit and enable them. But the thing is, there's so many more of us than them. And so if we can come together, if we can start demanding, voting for ICE is not acceptable. Taking Israel-aligned money and being okay with a genocide, pretending that a genocide doesn't exist, that is not okay. And if we come together, we can demand what we need. There are 150 candidates like me around the country. None of us are taking dark money. We've all pledged to lead our campaigns with integrity and to truly serve the people. There's a progressive wave coming. A lot of us are going to be elected, and it means we're going to be able to be effective and get things done. But we can't do it on our own. It's a movement, and we all have to contribute to that. Because when you don't take APAC money and you come from a trailer park, it's hard to get started. It's something we can all do together because there's way more of us than that. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to build a movement of people who are ready to talk to the other people in their community and say, let's break down this misconception. And let's start saying, we have to be careful who we're voting for. We can no longer vote for somebody just because they have a D next to their name. Not to mention because a lot of the free staters are running. So, you do have to be careful all around. But we need to start holding people accountable. We need to start demanding what we need. And if we want to do it, we're going to have to do it together. So I invite you to learn more about me, learn more about this campaign, because I truly believe that this is about us, not about me. I want to know what's important to you, and I hope that you will consider joining us. Thank you. Super question?
One of the issues I think that's most important to myself and probably a lot of people with gray hair also in the audience is the looming funding shortage of Social Security. Republicans seem to be content to just let the benefits be cut and accounted, but there are a myriad of potential solutions out there. What would be your position if you were representing us as our conference person towards fully funding the benefits of social security into the future?
Sure, I'm gonna be 100% authentic to begin with, that I haven't looked into this issue very deeply. But one thing that I do know is that right now, we don't have a lot of money to pay for anything. Because the billionaires are not paying their fair share. We know that if we went to more of a progressive taxation, that we would have what we need to fund the social service, well, it's not a social service, but social programs that we need to fund. I am gonna put that down on my list, and I'd love to talk to you afterwards and hear if you have some ideas. I do like to take this opportunity just quickly to say, when I don't know an answer or I haven't looked at a policy yet, I will tell you. And if I don't know something, I'll tell you. And if there's any politician who acts like they do know everything, that's the one I would be worried about. But what I do know is that I've worked in corporate settings. I manage a team of 20 clinicians for a large corporation. I know how to find what the problem is. I'm really good at rooting it out. I'm really good at knowing what the big picture is and getting down to the root. I'm excellent at getting the right people who are the experts that need to come together to make sure we do things in an evidence-based and strategic way. And I know how to get things done. So I will make sure that if there are questions, that I know how to get them. Yes.
Could you tell us more about your vision for the paid family leave?
Oh, sure.
Do you see it paid by employers, by insurance, by federal government, state government?
So when we start looking at it, there's a couple of organizations around the country who are working on this. Actually, I should know, something like 13 to 17 states do have some form of paid family medical leave, and more are getting that universal leave. One of the models that tends to work well is adding a very small premium. It can be, sometimes it's as small as, an average would be, if you look at the average around a lot of the states, $3 a paycheck would be a premium that we would be able to implement a full family medical leave program. So you can have it as essentially the people are paying for it instead of employers or the government. You don't have to have that involved. And that's the way that a lot of the states are doing it.
So a law which basically takes $3 from your paycheck, the state fund covers.
Yeah, it would be, it's kind of like a big risk pool, right? Everybody's paying in, so when people need it, it's available there. There's a few different ways, in different states, what generally changes is how much is coming out, but again, it's not a lot. I mean, that's the ballpark. How much is coming out? How many months people get? If they get so many months for different kinds of conditions versus pregnancy, postpartum, etc. There's also some nuance on how much gets paid out. So like 60% of your normal paycheck up to 90 or 100. A lot of states are doing a progressive one. So folks who make more money are only going to get 60%, but folks who make less money get a higher percentage because it's a higher percentage of their income that's coming out. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways we can look at it, but there's some good templates and there's some states that are making a lot of progress that we can definitely look at. I'd like to do it on the federal level. I think that we should do it on the federal level. I think that most other industrialized countries have it. Frankly, paid family medical leave, lack of it, is one of the contributors to our country having the worst maternal health outcomes of any industrialized country. It is more dangerous to have a baby here than it is in every other industrialized country, and we spend the most.
On federal level would mean that the $3 I pay from paycheck would go to a federal fund and then distributed. Well,
I think my time is up. I have a clipboard that's going around, and I've got buttons and stickers, and I'll be around to answer questions.
We went out right then.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you, Melanie. who are sharing with us tonight. I believe both of them will be around, and Angela has a quick ask, so, Angela, I'm gonna give you a minute.
Okay, so, we're having a big canvas, like a canvas launch for Melanie and a few other canvases, no, basically just Melanie.
Other candidates.
Yes, of course. It's gonna be this Sunday, 12 to 3, 22 Main Street in Nashua, and we would love if you guys joined us. So this is a sign up sheet. So if you wanna sign up, sign up. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna be there, so it's gonna be fun. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna get an early start on canvassing there. Okay, again, I think that both Paige and Melanie will be around. If you have more questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to. And we still have, yes, Brian. Sorry. Yeah, it's part of getting old. Anyway, so thank you again for coming tonight. As I said earlier, we are going to have a meeting in July. It's the 4th Tuesday of July, and Ben Ming is going to be coming and talking about education. I know a lot of you have thought about that, and there's a lot going on in New Hampshire around education. So please come for that, and then don't miss Rockville.
Thank you.
Okay, right. Yeah.